Aloha, and welcome to the 4th episode of That Time I Got Arrested. Even the darkest night will end and the sun will rise. I'm going to tell you a story about my very own personal officer, Javert. So sit back, relax, and join me, won't you? My name is B. Casper, and my entire life has been a lie. That's not even my real name. But don't worry, I'm going to tell you all of my secrets. This isn't the story of how I became an orphan. This isn't the story about how I jumped off a 5-story building and survived. This isn't about how I died and came back funny. This is that time I got arrested. I'm sad today because I'm sad a lot, but I'm sadder today because I'm just feeling sad. I like to let myself feel sad when I feel sad. And it makes me sad to relive these stories sometimes because it is reminding me and bringing me in to another person who doesn't exist anymore. But it's still me, but it's not me at the same time because I'm so different. Happiness is so important to me. It is the only thing I really, truly care about is feeling happy. And I like to cultivate happiness in a lot of different ways. I do all of that bullshit self-care stuff. I'm like a holistic hobbyist, I guess you could say. I smoke a lot of weed. I try and hang out with people that make my heart feel like it's going to explode. And I really take fun so seriously. It is vital to my existence is fun. Just pure, unadulterated joy. I fucking love string cheese. Love string cheese. I fucking die for string cheese. So this is a story about an officer that I had 4 different interactions with and how I tricked him, how I'm a bad bitch. I mean, I am. I'm so sick of people telling me that I'm the most interesting person that they've ever met. Like people that I get really close to and like vulnerable with. And I'll just tell them my like life stories and they're like, wow, you're so interesting. And that's not true. I'm so damaged. I can hardly make it through the day. But I smoke a lot of weed and I drink a lot of tea and I eat a lot of kale and I hug a lot of people. And then somehow the day passes and I get through the next one and the next one and the next one. But I'm sad today. So I'm feeling sad and I'm going to talk about these stories even though I'm feeling sad. And I just love you. You're my friend and we're close and I'm sharing all of my secrets with you. So I want you to know that today I'm sad. So when I was 19, I went to this special college in North Carolina. It was founded by a bunch of Quakers, but it was really for hippies and for trustafarians because it was kind of expensive. But it was for people who wanted to change the world, people who cared about sustainability, people who were exploration, that were explorers of like the hallucinogenic arts. So I mean, a bunch of fucking weirdos, but those were my people. That's who I am. And those are my people. And I know all 10 of you listening to this are, you're those guys. Hey, what's up? I love you. So there was this police officer. I'm going to call him Officer Shart because I can't say his real name, you know. I was 19. I was a sophomore in college. I was a drug dealer, and my major at this school was called the psychology of love. I didn't have any grades or exams. We had something called narrative evaluations. So you were graded based on how often you showed up to class and how much you participated. Our entire school had to work 15 hours a week on campus to make the school run. So they put that money back into the school. And it was a beautiful campus in the mountains. And we had a farm and everything was about, you know, sustaining and environmentalism. Those were like the cornerstones, and service, I guess, because the whole school had to volunteer on a big group project. And then we all had smaller groups that we all had to do like individualized volunteer stuff with, and just giving back and learning about how things really work, like practical skills. Like I learned electrical engineering, but only in the sense where I could like rewire a circuit breaker of a house, and that was just something that came with the education at the school. So I loved being in college, and I loved my friends, and I loved selling drugs, and I was living my life. I didn't care about the consequences of my actions. I didn't think long term. It was kind of like how I feel now, where I'm just sort of getting through the day, but I'm doing it really differently now than I did when I was 19. So this one time, I had a paper that was due, and I didn't have a printer in my dorm, so I had to go to the library to print this paper out. And where my school was in the mountains, and I lived outside of this tiny little town called Asheville. And all my friends and like my boyfriend at the time and a lot of the people that I hung out with lived in Asheville. They all went to UNC. I went to this like tiny hippie private school outside of town. And I would drive, back and forth because they only had like a shuttle that left twice a week. A lot of the kids at my school were like weirdos because they were, stuck in the mountains for extended periods of time. And that will have a profound effect on your personality. Who knew? So I was driving to the library so I could print out this paper because that's what I did for college. I think that's what a lot of people did. I wasn't wearing my seatbelt. And I got pulled over by Officer Shart. This was our first interaction with each other. And he was like a townie cop that really took his job so super seriously. And he did not know who he was messing with. So I was like this 19-year-old little punk piece of shit, garbage, like fucked up child. And he was a toy to me. So he pulled me over for not wearing a seatbelt. Guess what? My license was suspended. We've been over it, okay? Okay. My license was suspended. That gave him the right to search my car. I had weed on me. Oh my God. I know. You're shocked. I also had some Valium. And that's important to understand right now because weed is a misdemeanor. Having like under a quarter is a misdemeanor. It's not a big deal. Like you can get arrested for that. You'll totally get put in handcuffs. You have like a class B or a class A or a class 1 or a class 2, depending on what fucking state you're in, misdemeanor, but it's like no big thing. You pay a fine, maybe take a drug class. You can get it erased in a couple of years. It's like whatever. And even the first couple of times that you get arrested for weed, like they'll sentence you to supervision, which just means don't get arrested for however long you're on supervision for. That's the only thing. But like you obviously don't want to get arrested anyways. But here's a fun fact. You can get sentenced to supervision several times and they like don't check if you're on supervision. That's like such a thing. It's like a mental mind fuck. They like send you to court. They make you pay a fine. They give you this completely arbitrary punishment that's just like something that you're supposed to be scared of. But there's nothing to be afraid of because I have tested their diligence on this so many times and they're not paying attention. So anyways, I was at the library. I got pulled over. They searched my car. They found the weed. They found the Valium. The Valium was a felony. That would have been my first felony, and I was 19. So he arrested me. He took me to the police station. I asked him if I could make a phone call because I told him that I had a prescription for the Valium and that if I could call someone, I could have them bring the medicine bottle to the police station and prove to him that I had a prescription so he would not write me up for a felony. So I texted my boyfriend secretly when he like gave me the phone and I told him to grab a old bottle of Vicodin that I had from like an ear infection over the summer, whitewater rafting. What? And to empty the bottle because I definitely still had pills in there and they were not Valium. They were Vicodin. So I had him empty the bottle, bring it to the police station, showed it to the police officer, Officer Shart, with my name on it. And it was so funny watching him look in utter confusion at how he couldn't ascertain whether or not the pills that I had were actually the pills from this bottle. But I had him. I was 19 and I fucking had him. So I paid like a $50 bond. I got my misdemeanor. He dropped the felony. I left. That was the first time that he would arrest me. He would go on to arrest me 3 more times after this, but that was the first time. And he had blonde hair and blue eyes. He had a sweet, sort of like lilting Southern accent. Like the people in North Carolina sound like they're from the South, but only to a trained ear. So it's like they could pass, you know, for Yankees. Depending on who was listening, how observant you were. He didn't seem like a bad guy, but he did seem like he gave a shit too much about stuff that wasn't important. Like a 19-year-old girl smoking a little bit of weed, taking a couple of pills. I mean, hello, how do you relax, you know? I mean, no judgment, like tea and baths, but also Valium. Tea baths and Valium all at the same time. You're so welcome. So Officer Shart had a thing out for me at that point. The next time he arrested me was literally because he pulled up next to me on a fucking street corner, saw me, got behind me, ran my plates, pulled me over. My license wasn't even suspended anymore at this point. I did eventually get that shit cleared up. It wasn't suspended, but he said that he smelled weed because he knew that I smoked weed. So, I mean, hello, being profiled. And searched my car, found the weed, and arrested me again. It was like a gram of Maui Wowie. I remember my boyfriend was really pissed at me because I lost the last of that good weed. Then I saw him again. So, I mean, I went to this hippie college. I was like deeply ingrained in this culture of people that were radical. And I loved it because I was radical. I like watched Zeitgeist, the first, second, and third one. I like joined a Zeitgeist group where we're like, yeah, money's evil. We're going to take care of each other. We're going to live off the land. And the government is trying to poison us. All of these things are still true. But at that time in my life, when I was 19, I was part of this community where we were taking really tangible steps forward to sort of disentangle ourselves from this machine of modern society that we felt like we were placed in without really our consent. And once we were old enough to see the inherent flaws in it, we were going to make the conscious choice to live differently. So I was a part of this community that cared about different kinds of things. And one of the things we did was Freegans. And I don't know if you know what that is. I mean, first of all, I was a vegan for 3 years when I was in college, but Freegans in particular, not the same as vegans, but Freegans like dumpster dive at supermarkets for food that has to be thrown away, but is still edible, which they have to throw away. They are not legally allowed to give it to food pantries or homeless shelters or, you know, any logical place where that food could go. So instead of making good use of the abundance, they throw it away. And I was part of a group of people that were like, nah, we'll come get it. We'll make everybody dinner. You can come. It's delicious. It's not gross. It's not gross. I don't care what people say. It's not gross. It's amazing. I do imperfect produce now. I compost. So, I mean, like, my values haven't changed, but I'm not 19 anymore. And I'm not dumpster diving for supermarket surplus to have communal vegan meals in the mountains of North Carolina. That's not who I am anymore. And I'm sad because, like, fuck, that was so great. That was such a great part of my life. Well, anyways, this one time we were dumpster diving and it is illegal and they're not supposed to let you do it. So they do call the police on you occasionally if you get caught. And we definitely had a plan, you know, we knew that could happen. So certain people held bags of food. Certain people were actually in the dumpsters. Certain people, you know, kept an eye out. So when we saw the cops, everyone ran. I was one of the people that like was dumpster diving and didn't have any bags of food in my hand, but I got like held up. Guess who was fucking there? Officer Shart. God damn it. Get a life, dude. So he shows up and he's just like, oh, you again? And I mean, trust me, samesies, you know? So the supermarket manager decided not to press charges against me because he knew that there were a bunch of people and I was just the one that got left behind. I mean, God, is that like so poetic? Because that is my life. The manager said that he wasn't going to prosecute me. And Officer Shart said, I'll take her in right now. I'll take her in right now. He's like salivating. He wanted to take me down so hard. And they let me go. And I walked to my car and I drove about half a mile and I got pulled over. Officer Shart followed me down the road, pulled me over at a fire station. What an asshole. And searched my car because my license was suspended. Yes, it got suspended again. I mean, like, I would occasionally get it fixed and then some other shit would come up. And man, I just had such a rough time when I was a teenager. So my license was suspended. He searched my car. And this is funny because this is like where the power dynamic between Officer Shart and I really changed fundamentally because I played him like a violin. He searched my car, didn't find any drugs for once in my goddamn life, and he found a planner that had a Post-it that was from a volunteer project that I did in college at WIC, which is WIC, Women, Infant, and Children. And he saw that, and he saw this like, troubled, lost teen. And he goes, are you pregnant? And instinctually, I was like, lie to this man right now. And I nodded, and I said yes. And I tried to make my eyes look so sad and so big. And his entire demeanor towards me changed after that. So he was like, all right, we're still going to tow your car, but I'm going to give you an I-bond and I'm going to let you go right now. And can I give you a ride home? And so like legit Officer Shart gave me a ride home after this. And I mean, he definitely tried to do some like dad stuff. And I was like, you know, like just pouty lip and, oh, I'm so dumb and young. How did I get into this situation? He dropped me off. And that wasn't the last time I saw him because I still had to go to court for those other 2 misdemeanors, marijuana misdemeanors. I went to court and I smoke a lot of weed. And sometimes you forget where you put stuff because you're high. And that's what happens when you're a stoner and you like to chill bones 24/7. So I put the bowl in my pocket of my coat and then I went to court and I went through a metal detector and put my coat on a conveyor belt, you know, one of those like x-ray things. Oh man, like the airport. You guys remember that? I fucking pulled a Jason. God damn it. And I got arrested at the courthouse. Guess who was at the courthouse? Because he was there to testify against me for the marijuana charge, the possession charge. Got a paraphernalia charge right in that day. I missed my court date. Got a bench warrant for missing my court date because I was in jail for paraphernalia. And all that shit got dropped. I mean, not dropped, but, you know, like didn't matter. Was inconsequential. They didn't catch me for moving pounds, like what I was really doing. They got me for less than 1 gram and for a petty misdemeanor paraphernalia charge. And that makes me happy that I got away with it. Makes me happy to relive that part of it. But what a fucking waste of time. What a waste of their time. I didn't learn any lessons. I'm not like, drugs are bad. I like definitely went to some drug and alcohol classes and I thought it was a joke. In our next episode, I'll tell you how to fake a drug test if you're a female. I have a foolproof plan and I have done it for law enforcement. So stay tuned if you want hot tips. I really want to teach you guys how to be better criminals. I feel like if there's anything I have to offer, it's my experience and knowledge in how to get away with stuff. Because I've been arrested so many times, but the shit that I really did wrong, I mean, fuck, all of the acid and DMT that I fucking sold and took and have. What? Follow me on Instagram. Subscribe. I love you guys. Reach out. I'll write you a letter. Bon voyage.